In 1979, Alien shocked the world and redefined popular culture. As a result, Alien, Romulus has generated incredible excitement with its promise of more spaceships, creatures, and complex characters. Yet, between films, the Alien franchise expanded into a universe of sequels, prequels, and even crossovers. Never before had horror and science fiction combined to create such a complex and terrifying world. However, behind the scenes, the series was marked by conflict between visionary directors and the powerful forces of Hollywood. The studio pressures and creative clashes were often more intense than the alien threats themselves. Get your spacesuits ready because this is going to be a long one. We're about to explore the secrets of the whole Alien saga. This video took a lot of time to research and edit, so I appreciate it if you could leave a like, comment, and subscribe. The Alien franchise was shaped by countless talented individuals, but its origins can be traced back to one person, Dan O'Bannon, a dedicated science fiction fan. While studying film, he connected with another enthusiast, John Carpenter. Together, they created Carpenter's first movie, Dark Star, a comedic tale about astronauts. O'Bannon played a crew member who battles a bizarre beach ball-shaped alien in a humorous, almost cartoonish sequence. O'Bannon saw potential in the Dark Star sequence and wanted to develop it into something more serious, inspired by his unfinished script, Memory, about astronauts and a monster, and by his own health struggles with Crohn's disease. He created a new story called Star Beast. O'Bannon temporarily shelved his project when Alejandro Jodorowsky recruited him to design special effects for his adaptation of Dune, a film that was never completed. After the project's cancellation, the struggling screenwriter stayed with his friend and fellow writer Ronald Shusett. Together, they began collaborating on new scripts. O'Bannon revived his Star Beast idea, and they developed a new screenplay titled Alien. O'Bannon realized the title could function as both a noun and an adjective. To attract film studios, they described Alien as Jaws in space, capitalizing on the success of Steven Spielberg's film. O'Bannon envisioned a low-budget production similar to Roger Corman's films. However, the project was rejected by all studios due to its graphic content. Additionally, science fiction was not a popular genre in the mid-1970s. Brandywine Productions, a company founded by David Giler, Gordon Carroll, and Walter Hill, acquired the script. Hill was already a respected screenwriter and director. He and his partners admired O'Bannon and Shusett's work, but felt it could be improved. Collaborating with Giler, they produced 8 drafts, refining characters and settings. They presented the script to 20th Century Fox, with whom they had a relationship. However, like other studios, Fox executives found the project unconventional and risky. But the release of Star Wars Episode IV: A New Hope in May 1977 marked a turning point. The film's immense success convinced Fox and the entire Hollywood industry that science fiction could be highly profitable once again. Eager to leverage this trend, the studio turned to the Alien script as its closest option. This marked the beginning of a complex journey filled with both triumphs and challenges. From the start, the production of Alien was fraught with tension between the filmmakers and Fox. A key figure was Alan Ladd Jr., the studio's president. He had been the sole supporter of George Lucas's first Star Wars film. This pattern repeated, though this project was darker and unsuitable for a general audience. The film was given a budget of $4.2 million, a respectable sum in the late 1970s that exceeded typical low-budget productions. While Brandywine had revised the script, O'Bannon and Shusett remained invested in the project. O'Bannon, viewing it as his creation, was determined to see his vision realized. He enlisted artists who had collaborated with him on Dune, including the Swiss artist H.R. Giger, renowned for his fusion of horror, technology, and sexuality. The Alien itself was inspired by Giger's painting Necronom 4, based on the works of H.P. Lovecraft. The painting featured a humanoid figure with a phallic head, sparking countless interpretations. Carlo Rambaldi constructed the creature, while the imposing Nigerian actor Bolaji Badejo brought it to life in a suit. The director's role remained unfilled. Walter Hill declined the position, preferring to focus on a personal project, The Warriors, rather than a special effects-heavy film. Fox proposed directors like Robert Aldrich, Peter Yates, and Jack Clayton, but Clayton dismissed the project as a stupid monster movie. That's when Ridley Scott emerged as a potential candidate. Hailing from Britain, Scott was a highly respected commercial director. His first feature, The Duelists, a Napoleonic-era drama, had garnered a Cannes Award, but remained relatively unknown. While Fox was initially hesitant, Hill championed Scott as the ideal choice. While not a dedicated science fiction fan, Scott admired the script's conciseness, pace, and intensity. Inspired by the impact of Star Wars Episode IV, he sought to challenge himself within the genre. O'Bannon shared Giger's artwork and a copy of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which influenced Scott's vision for a suspenseful film. For Scott, Alien meant his entry into the world of major Hollywood filmmaking. His background and vision visual arts enabled him to create a detailed storyboard that further convinced Fox of the project's potential. Impressed, Ladd approved an increased budget. Ultimately, Alien would cost $8.4 million, a substantial sum for that time. There's a common myth that explains Ladd's unwavering confidence in the project. While seeking a director, he shared the script with Spielberg, who was forced to decline due to scheduling commitments. Despite this, Spielberg was captivated by the material and predicted it would become a massive hit, comparable to Jaws. Set in the year 2122, Alien introduces the Nostromo, a commercial spaceship returning to Earth. The crew intercepts a distress call from an unidentified planet, prompting the ship's computer to redirect its course. This change awakens the 7 crew members from hypersleep. They are Captain Dallas, Navigation Officer Lambert, Science Officer Ash, Executive Officer Kane, Warrant Officer and Pilot Ripley, and engineers Parker and Brett. Also aboard is Jonesy, the ship's cat. The crew soon arrives at LV-426, a desolate, windswept moon. The wreckage of the ship that emitted the distress signal is prominent. Inside, Dallas, Kane, and Lambert discover the body of an alien with a fatal chest wound. They then uncover a chamber filled with alien eggs. A spider-like creature emerges from one egg and attaches itself to Kane's face. This life stage of the alien would later be identified as the facehugger. Back on the Nostromo, Kane is isolated and unconscious. The crew is unable to remove the alien creature attached to his face until it releases him on its own. Once free, Kane awakens seemingly normal, but during a meal, a horrifying turn of events occurs as a mutant parasite erupts from his chest. This stage of the creature is known as a chest burster. From that moment, the crew becomes prey for a fully grown monster. Able to blend into the Nostromo's dark metal surroundings, it proves nearly impossible to kill. Its acidic blood poses a lethal threat to the ship itself. Dallas becomes one of its first victims. The early demise of a leader would become a common plot point in the series. In the midst of the terror, shocking truths emerge. Ash is uncovered as an android working for Weyland-Yutani, the corporation that owns the ship. Before his destruction, he confesses to orders to bring the creature back to Earth alive, no matter the cost. Ripley and Jonesy are the only survivors. She triggers the Nostromo's self-destruction before escaping in the shuttle, but the alien has hidden aboard the shuttle. Ripley finds a way to expel the creature into space by briefly opening the airlock. Making Alien was even more challenging than expected. To save money, filming took place in London studios, but Fox remained skeptical about the project. Scott and his team faced intense pressure. The director managed to reassure the studio executives by showing them select scenes. Fox was also hesitant about a cast without well-known actors. Scott opted for lesser-known performers to create a sense of vulnerability for any character. He initially wanted the rising star Meryl Streep for Ripley, but, with her unavailable, conducted a thorough search for the role. Sigourney Weaver, a theater actress, was eventually cast. Despite her dislike for the script and horror films, Scott persuaded her to take the part. The promise of higher pay compared to theater also influenced her decision. O'Bannon originally envisioned Ripley as a man. Hill decided to make the character female because audiences at the time were unaccustomed to female leads. She named the character Ellen Ripley, combining her mother's name with a reference to the Ripley's Believe It or Not series. Scott also faced challenges with another actor. John Finch was originally cast as Kane, but had to leave the production after a few days due to illness. John Hurt took over the role just in time. However, O'Bannon was the biggest source of concern for Fox and Scott. He envisioned a more comedic approach, while the director preferred a raw, realistic style. Disagreements were frequent. O'Bannon had a volatile temper and wasn't afraid to stand his ground. Ultimately, the company terminated his employment and prohibited him from any further involvement in the film. During the post-production process, Scott screened the initial edit of Alien for Fox. Ladd was dissatisfied. He'd asked for a less violent film, but it was filled with gore. The director had to cut several scenes, including Brett's graphic death. At the same time, a dispute arose over who would receive writing credit. Hill and Giler asserted that they had completely reworked the original material, deeming it overly ambitious. O'Bannon countered that they had merely altered character names and dialogue. Brandywine, backed by Fox, ultimately decided that only O'Bannon would be credited as screenwriter, with the story attributed to himself and Jeunet. Despite internal conflicts, Ladd recalled the triumph of Episode 4 and Spielberg's supportive comments. Those films had pioneered the blockbuster model, and he sought to replicate that success with Alien. It was a gamble, given the film's adult target audience and lack of star power, yet Ladd invested nearly as much in the marketing campaign as in the production itself. Honoring Scott's vision, the marketing strategy emphasized suggestion over explicit imagery, carefully avoiding revealing the creature. The risks proved worthwhile. Alien emerged as both a commercial and critical sensation, grossing over $100 million. It resonated with audiences eager for both interstellar adventure adventure and intense thrills. At the time, horror cinema was transitioning from gothic narratives to violent tales featuring innovative monsters. This shift mirrored the societal unrest of the 1970s, a period marked by the nation's defeat in the Vietnam War and the enduring impact of the Watergate scandal. Alien earned 2 Oscar nominations, winning for Best Visual Effects. Geiger accepted the award, but Fox declined to involve him in future projects. The film inspired countless imitations and parodies, propelling the careers of its cast and crew. O'Bannon's experience was less positive. Dissatisfied with the final product, he faced termination from both Fox and Brandywine. Nonetheless, he maintained credit for character creation. Given Alien's success, a sequel seemed inevitable. However, the challenges that lay ahead for the filmmakers would prove far greater than anticipated. Alien was a triumph for its creators. Scott emerged as a highly sought-after director. Weaver secured more prominent roles. Geiger's haunting visuals gained widespread acclaim. Yet, none of them could have anticipated the chaos that would ensue during the production of the sequel. Alan Ladd Jr. resigned as Fox's president in 1979, and the new leadership showed little interest in continuing the studio's previous projects. Meanwhile, Brandywine became embroiled in a legal battle with Fox over Alien profits. The dispute was eventually settled, and the two parties reconciled. In 1983, Hill and Giler were authorized to develop a sequel. However, they faced uncertainties. Scott's film had relied on suspense and horror, and reintroducing the monster would lack surprise. Consequently, they crafted a new approach, an action-packed saga featuring more characters and creatures. Many were surprised that Scott was not chosen to direct the sequel. As he revealed years later, he was never offered the opportunity, a decision that angered him. Enter James Cameron, a protege of Roger Corman. Cameron had even served as second unit director on the 1981 film Galaxy of Terror, a clear imitation of Alien. His subsequent film, Terminator, showcased his ability to craft both entertaining and intelligent cinema. A dedicated Alien fan, Cameron crafted a screenplay building upon the concepts developed by Hill and Giler. He infused the script with elements from Robert Heinlein's Starship Troopers and drew parallels to the unsuccessful U.S. involvement in Vietnam. Yet securing Fox's approval remained a challenge. Invited to a meeting with the studio's new president and a trio of producers, the young filmmaker presented his title concept. Grabbing a whiteboard, he wrote "Alien" in capital letters, followed by an S. Explaining that multiple creatures would need a plural title, he transformed the S into a $sign with 2 vertical lines. Cameron's immediate grasp of the business aspect of filmmaking secured him the job. The budget was increased to $18.5 million, double that of its predecessor. However, cost-cutting measures remained necessary. Fox opted to film in London again, leading to the hiring of American actors based in Great Britain. Despite these constraints, Cameron managed to secure roles for his preferred actors, Lance Henriksen and Bill Paxton. However, Weaver's role still needed to be finalized. Cameron explained that Ripley would become a more complex character, facing greater challenges and triumphs. Weaver agreed, but she now demanded a contract reflecting her newfound stardom. Negotiations between her and Fox were drawn out, and they even considered cutting Ripley from the script entirely. Ultimately, Weaver agreed to a $1 million salary plus a percentage of the film's profits. Alien starts when Ripley is rescued from 57 years in hypersleep. Nobody believes her account of the Nostromo catastrophe, and she loses her pilot's license. The extended version reveals she also had a daughter who has died. But Ripley is forced to return to LV-426, the planet where Kane was attacked by the alien. A colony has been established there, and they've lost contact. She joins a team of Marines led by Corporal Dwayne Hicks to assess the situation. Also on board the Sulaco is Carter Burke, a Weyland-Yutani executive, and Bishop, who identifies as a synthetic rather than an android. Importantly, the creature is officially classified as a xenomorph. At the colony, they find widespread destruction but no bodies. They also discover Newt, a terrified young girl, and Ripley takes it upon herself to protect her. The Marines locate the colonists in the lower levels of the atmospheric processor, only to find they've been infected and are attacked by swarms of xenomorphs. Ripley rescues a few soldiers, but escape is impossible when their dropship is destroyed by an alien. The survivors are forced to shelter within the colony's buildings while they await rescue. Armed with limited weaponry, they must contend with the lurking creatures. To make matters worse, the atmospheric processor is on the verge of exploding with the force of a nuclear bomb. Meanwhile, Burke is exposed as a traitor working for Weyland-Yutani. He planned to return with infected specimens to develop them into biological weapons. A creature quickly kills him. In another confrontation with the xenomorphs, more soldiers die. Hicks is critically injured and Newt is kidnapped by the aliens. Ripley ventures back into the atmospheric processor to find the girl. She discovers Newt within a nest of xenomorphs, controlled by a queen alien. Ripley destroys the alien eggs, secures Newt, and they escape in a dropship piloted by Bishop just before the colony explodes. Back on the Sulaco, Ripley, Newt, Bishop, and Hicks believe they've escaped the horror. However, Bishop is fatally injured by the alien queen. A final confrontation between two maternal figures occurs, ending with the monster banished into space. Making Aliens was as intense as the film itself. Cameron was driven to create the best possible movie and was unforgiving of anyone who didn't share his passion. This led to significant tension with the British crew, who missed their previous director and valued their traditional tea breaks. They also struggled to respect Cameron's authority. Angered, Cameron fired some staff members. In response, the rest of the crew walked off the job. Cameron considered moving the production, but the studio warned him it would dramatically increase costs. With filming behind schedule, Cameron reluctantly explained the importance of the project and agreed to accommodate the crew's traditions. The situation was eventually resolved, and production resumed. Cameron also faced challenges with the cast. James Remar was initially cast as Hicks, and with the rest of the cast, underwent 3 weeks of military training. However, shortly after filming started, he was arrested for substance possession and removed from the project. Concerned, Fox urged Cameron to find a replacement. He quickly tapped Michael Biehn, who had recently starred in Terminator. Biehn immediately flew to London and smoothly integrated into the dedicated and supportive cast. Despite these and other challenges, Fox remained determined. In the mid-1980s, blockbuster films dominated the market, and they now had a more mainstream alien movie. The advertising campaign was more aggressive than the first film. While consulted on poster concepts, Cameron had less control over the overall promotion. Released on July 18, 1986, Aliens captivated critics and earned $131 million at the box office. The film was praised for Cameron's creation of a rich mythology. We gained a deeper understanding of the xenomorphs and their world, as well as Ripley and her surroundings. The film also expanded the story of Weyland-Yutani and their sinister plans. Aliens garnered 7 Academy Award nominations, including a groundbreaking Best Actress nod for Weaver, which was unprecedented for a horror film. It ultimately won for Best Visual Effects and Best Sound Editing, establishing Cameron's status as a visionary filmmaker. Aliens transformed O'Bannon's vision of a franchise into a reality. Fox quickly approved the development of a third film. Little did they know, or anyone else for that matter, that this one would become a nightmare. Alien and Aliens were both challenging to produce, but ultimately successful. However, Alien 3 was plagued by pure chaos. Cameron was overlooked for this project. Fox and Brandywine reached out to Ridley Scott again, who was dissatisfied with the previous installment. They even explored the possibility of a story set on the alien homeworld. However, these plans fell through as Scott was already committed to other films. For the next 3 years, the project went through development hell with multiple screenwriters. Director Rennie Harlin was also attached to the project for a time. However, Fox turned down every script. In 1990, Fox and Brandywine selected a concept by New Zealand filmmaker Vincent Ward. The story was set on a wooden satellite populated by monks. Weaver would not only return as Ripley, but also serve as a co-producer, hoping to protect the character's development from further cuts. Despite entering pre-production, Fox and Brandywine remained uncertain about the project. When director Vincent Ward resisted their requested changes, he was fired from the production. Hill and Giler subsequently developed a new script, incorporating elements from Ward's work in previous drafts. By this point, Alien 3 had already spent $7 million in development. Fox was under pressure to hire a new director. They selected David Fincher, who was by then a rising star in commercials and music videos. Despite no feature film experience, Fincher impressed with his vision for a darker film, suggesting criminal main characters. He also requested Weaver shave her head for the role, a drastic change that earned her an additional $1 million on top of her $4 million contract. With everyone on board with his ideas, Fincher assumed he'd have creative freedom, but he was sorely mistaken. Alien 3 immediately plunges us into a bleak setting. Ripley, Newt, and Hicks are in hypersleep aboard the Sulaco when a facehugger attacks one of them. The creature's acidic blood ignites a fire, forcing the survivors into an escape pod that lands on Fiorina Fury 161, a prison planet housing a mineral refinery and populated by bald celibate convicts with religious beliefs. Ripley is the only survivor of the crash. Neither the prisoners nor the warden, Andrews, believe her. She shaves her head, but her presence alone creates creates tension among the men. A hidden facehugger on the shuttle attached itself to Spike, the prison's Rottweiler. A new xenomorph emerged from the dog, combining the creature's deadly traits with the speed and ferocity of its canine host. Meanwhile, Ripley develops a connection with Clemens, the medical officer, and temporarily reactivates the remains of Bishop. The synthetic man confirms the existence of the alien and Weyland-Yutani's plan to capture the creature. The situation worsens when the alien kills Clemens and traps Ripley, though she manages to survive. Ripley races to the mess hall to warn everyone, but Andrews is caught there by the creature, which one of the prisoners has nicknamed Dragon. Ripley must now lead the prisoners in eliminating the threat. Their initial attempt to use toxic waste backfires, resulting in a fire that kills most of the inmates. Ripley uses the hypersleep chamber to examine herself for injuries and discovers an alien queen developing inside her. The lieutenant refuses to surrender. She manages to kill the creature, but Weyland-Yutani officials, led by a Bishop look-alike, quickly arrive. He claims they plan to remove the queen and destroy it. Disbelieving him, she sacrifices herself by jumping into the molten lead, ensuring the death of the newborn alien. The production of Alien 3 was as chaotic and unpredictable as the film itself. Fincher bore the brunt of this turmoil. Beginning with only 19 pages of script, he faced immense pressure from Hill, Giler, and Fox executives. The studio even assigned supervisors to monitor his work closely, especially when he exceeded the film's budget to achieve desired shots. Giler condescendingly referred to him as the sneaker salesman, due to his previous work in advertising for Nike. Despite overwhelming challenges, Fincher fought back. He secretly collaborated with another writer and filmed scenes without the executive's knowledge, even operating the camera himself. His dedication earned him the respect of the cast and crew. However, Fox fired him during post-production, seeking complete control over the editing process. Fincher, however, had shot the footage in a way that prevented significant changes without compromising the film's integrity. Despite production challenges, Fox heavily invested in the film. They launched a wide-ranging marketing campaign that included comics and video games. Released on May 22, 1992, Alien 3 underperformed at the box office and received mixed reviews. Some praised it as a bold, nihilistic film reflective of the 1990s, while others condemned it as a complete failure. Fans were outraged by the deaths of Newt and Hicks. Fincher admitted to disliking the film more than anyone else, even considering quitting filmmaking entirely. Fortunately, he changed his mind and is now a renowned director. Despite the challenges faced with Alien 3, Fox approved a fourth film. They aimed to rectify the mistakes, but difficulties would once again arise. Alien 3 was a terrible experience. No one involved was satisfied with the outcome. Weaver found a glimmer of hope in Ripley's sacrifice, though. It would release her from the series, allowing her to pursue other roles. However, Fox remained confident in the Alien franchise. The third film had strong international box office results, and merchandise sales continued to be robust. The potential for a fourth movie was initiated by the studio's new leadership, headed by President Bill Mechanic. To prevent repeating past mistakes, Fox and Brandywine brought on a single screenwriter, Joss Whedon, creator of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Both he and the studio agreed to avoid another downbeat film. Whedon initially wrote a draft without Ripley, but the studio insisted on her inclusion, believing her essential to the film's success. The challenge of resurrecting a deceased character led to the solution of using cloning, a popular topic at the time. Weaver was captivated by the new direction for her character. She realized it would offer opportunities to explore previously unseen aspects of the lieutenant. She signed a contract for an $11 million fee and a co-producer credit. To appeal to a younger demographic, studio executives sought a 90s icon, Winona Ryder. A dedicated fan of the series, she accepted the role without reading the script. Finding a director proved challenging. Danny Boyle was initially attached to the project, but quickly departed due to anticipated pressures from the studio. Other names like David Cronenberg and Alex de la Iglesia were considered, but the choice ultimately fell on French director Jean-Pierre Jeunet. Known for visually striking films with unconventional protagonists, such as Delicatessen and The City of Lost Children, Jeunet initially resisted Hollywood, but was persuaded by Weaver to join the project, forming a strong alliance. The director received a warning call from Fincher, who told him it would be difficult. Despite this, the studio granted him creative autonomy, allowing him to assemble his regular team and dedicate 2 months to developing a storyboard. Set 200 years after the events on Fiorina Fury 161, the film unfolds aboard the military vessel Auriga. A team of scientists successfully clones Ripley to extract the alien queen's embryo. However, the original Ripley also exists, transformed into a being of extraordinary strength, agility, and unpredictable behavior with acidic blood. A ship named Betty arrives, transporting mercenaries and a highly classified cargo, human subjects for a facehugger infection. The scientists utilize these men to develop a new strain of xenomorphs for their clandestine experiments. Meanwhile, Ripley is nearly killed by Call, one of the mercenaries. She turns out to be an undercover agent with the mission of exterminating the alien specimens. A conflict also arises between the mercenaries and the military. But everything takes a turn for the worse when the xenomorphs escape. The situation becomes even more apocalyptic when Ren, one of the surviving scientists, reveals that, in case of an emergency, the Auriga is programmed to return to Earth. The mercenaries make a desperate escape attempt, with Ripley joining them despite her unpredictable behavior. They encounter numerous challenges, and some don't survive. Shocking revelations emerge as Ren betrays the group, shooting Call, only to be revealed as a synthetic. She plays a crucial role in sabotaging the Auriga's systems, setting it on a collision course with Earth. Just as hope begins to emerge, Ripley is captured by the creatures and compelled to witness a horrific event. Due to the contamination of her DNA during the cloning process, the alien queen births a hybrid creature composed of human and xenomorph elements. This monstrous offspring kills its biological mother and becomes obsessed with Ripley, who barely escapes to the Betty ship. The relentless creature pursues her, but Ripley ultimately uses her corrosive blood to create a deadly opening, drawing the hybrid into it. The survivors enter Earth's atmosphere, witnessing the Auriga's fiery descent and preparing for their own landing. While making Alien Resurrection, Jeunet enjoyed the creative freedom promised to him, but faced daily pressure from producers to accelerate production and stay within the $75 million budget. Weaver consistently encouraged him to focus on creating a quality film rather than worrying about financial constraints. Additionally, Jeunet's inability to speak English required the use of a translator. The director encountered his most significant challenges during his interactions with Whedon. Supported by Fox, the director implemented changes to the script and altered the hybrid's appearance. Infuriated by these revisions, Whedon expressed his discontent, but ultimately lacked the authority to intervene. Fox anticipated that Alien Resurrection would revitalize the franchise. Executives believed the film's action and humor would overshadow Jeunet's distinctive style. Given the dominance of sequels at the box office in the late 1990s, expectations were high. However, the film's 1997 release yielded mixed reviews and modest financial returns. While initially disappointed, some fans have developed a newfound appreciation for the film. In contrast, Jeunet always regarded the project as a professional obligation and has consistently declined subsequent Hollywood offers. However, no one was as critical as Whedon. Years later, he claimed that his work had been compromised and criticized Jeunet's contributions. The Frenchman responded by suggesting that Whedon excelled at creating films for dumb audiences, a subtle reference to the Avengers franchise. Whedon's strong criticism and the film's underperformance halted plans for a fifth installment, tentatively titled Alien Revelation. Despite this, Cameron expressed interest in continuing the franchise. He wrote a script with Scott in mind as director, aiming to reunite the original franchise directors. Weaver had also agreed to reprise her role. However, Fox's decision to develop a crossover with another science fiction property derailed these plans. Despite the underperformance of recent films, Fox remained committed to the Alien franchise. However, the studio approved a crossover with the Predator series. The idea came from the Alien vs. Predator comic book series, launched in 1989. A hint of this crossover appeared at the end of Predator 2 with the appearance of a xenomorph skull. The first film to feature both iconic creatures was directed by Paul W.S. Anderson. In Alien vs. Predator, an expedition team is caught in a conflict between two alien species within a hidden Antarctic pyramid. Among the casualties is Charles Bishop Weyland, the original version of the synthetic. Despite negative reviews, AVP achieved commercial success, leading to a sequel directed by the Strauss brothers, Alien vs. Predator 2. The action shifts to Gunnison, Colorado, where a deadly hybrid of alien and predator, the Predalien, wreaks havoc. While a group of humans fight for survival, the film concludes with a predator weapon being given to a woman named Yutani. The film also received overwhelmingly negative reviews. Despite its connection to the Alien franchise, neither film was considered official canon. Fox abandoned the crossover concept and returned to standalone stories featuring individual creatures. For the Xenomorph series, they brought back an original director, though tensions resurfaced. Following the negative reception of Alien vs. Predator 2, Fox sought to revitalize the Alien franchise. To restore its original tone, the studio enlisted Ridley Scott, The director had distanced himself from the franchise after the studio prioritized crossovers, which he deemed inferior. However, the offer of a producer credit convinced him to return. Scott revisited his original concept for Alien 3, exploring the origins of the xenomorphs. He had always been curious about the ship discovered by the Nostromo crew, containing the mysterious corpse and countless eggs. Fox embraced the idea. Instead of a sequel, they would create a prequel, a common approach in contemporary filmmaking. Scott shared his vision with screenwriter John Spates, intending to serve only as producer. He offered the directing role to his film protege Carl Eric Rinch. Fox rejected this plan and told Scott that the project would be canceled without his involvement as a director. Ultimately, Scott agreed. Scott also had to compromise on the title. Initially, it was titled Paradise, referencing John Milton's Paradise Lost. However, Fox executive Thomas Rothman suggested a change as it might reveal too much about the plot. The title was subsequently changed to Prometheus, referencing the Titan who defied the gods. Disagreements persisted. Scott sought a $250 million budget for a dark, mature film, while Fox offered $150 million and a broader audience appeal. To reconcile these differences, screenwriter Damon Lindelof was brought in to revise Spates' script. Prometheus opens with a colossal humanoid figure consuming a dark liquid before disintegrating into a waterfall. We then fast forward to the year 2089. Archaeologists Elizabeth Shaw and Charlie Holloway discover a cave painting in Scotland depicting a giant-like figure. 4 years later, they join the Prometheus expedition, led by the elderly Peter Weyland, head of Weyland Corporation. Through a holographic message, Weyland reveals their mission: to find extraterrestrial life. Shaw and Holloway believe life on Earth was engineered by beings called engineers, who left behind a star map to guide them. The crew soon lands on LV-223, the presumed home of the engineers. Within a cavern, they discover the remains of a colossal figure and a head-shaped artifact surrounded by containers of the same black liquid. The crew is attacked by terrifying creatures from the cave. The main instigator is David, a synthetic with an inflated sense of self-importance. Portrayed by Michael Fassbender, the character is named after David Giler. Finding an alien in suspended animation, David understands the deadly nature of the substance. He infects Holloway, leading to a physical relationship between Holloway and Shaw. Holloway rapidly mutates and is killed by fire. Despite being unable to conceive, Shaw later discovers she is pregnant. Alarmed, she removes a tentacled creature from her body and locks it away. Shortly after, Shaw discovers Weyland aboard the Prometheus. Believing the engineers hold the secret to immortality, they approach the slumbering giant. Upon awakening, the colossal being decapitates David and kills Weyland. Shaw escapes and realizes the cave is actually a spacecraft that contains a biological weapon designed to eradicate humanity. As the vessel ascends through the planet's atmosphere, the Prometheus intercepts it, resulting in its destruction. Yet, the engineer survives and pursues Shaw to the medical bay. There, the monstrous alien engages the giant in combat. Seizing the opportunity, Shaw escapes and returns to the alien ship. She finds David's head still operational. Together, they embark on a journey to the engineer's home planet to uncover their motive for humanity's destruction. Meanwhile, a new species of xenomorph emerges from the engineer. Despite Fox's pressure, Scott was able to make the movie exactly how he wanted. He chose the cast and was involved in the ambitious marketing campaign, which included a series of short films that served as prequels to the movie. It was crucial for everyone to create a strong marketing push, as this would be the first film in the series without the word alien in the title, and there was a risk of confusing the audience. The bold move paid off. Prometheus was a box office hit and earned critical acclaim. Most importantly, it proved that the Alien franchise was still a powerful force. However, dedicated fans criticized the film for its lack of alien creatures and unresolved plot points. Scott had intentionally left questions unanswered to set up a sequel. This film would also continue his tense relationship with Fox. Even as an alien movie, Prometheus was a risky venture for both Fox and Scott. Its strong box office numbers led to the approval of a sequel. The director aimed to make a film without any xenomorphs, focusing solely on David, but Fox insisted on the opposite: more aliens. They wanted to please the fans. The studio also argued it would better connect with the 1979 film. Despite being able to keep his producer role, Scott had to follow all the other studio's orders. There was also a disagreement about the film's title. To meet Fox's requirements, it needed to include the word alien. Scott initially announced the title would be Alien: Paradise Lost. However, the studio compelled him to change it to the name of the new spaceship. As a result, the final title became Alien Covenant. The film opens with a philosophical dialogue between David and a younger Peter Weyland than the one we encountered in Prometheus. This early exchange reveals the synthetic's tendency to question human authority. The story then fast-forwards to the year 2104 and the Covenant spacecraft. Carrying 1,140 human embryos, the ship is bound for for Origay 6 to establish a colony. Among the crew is Walter, another synthetic portrayed by Fassbender. The character's name honors filmmaker Walter Hill. A powerful energy surge damages the cargo and kills the captain. While the ship is being repaired, they intercept a signal from a nearby planet. The new captain decides to investigate, a decision that infuriates Catherine Daniels, the original captain's partner. A landing party descends to the new planet in a shuttlecraft. They quickly realize the signal originated from the engineer's ship, previously explored by David and Shaw. Amidst the planet's wheat fields and forests, a deadly spore contaminates 2 crew members. From their bodies, a new type of alien, the neomorph, emerges. Chaos erupts, and even the shuttlecraft is destroyed. David rescues the few survivors and takes them to the ruins of an ancient civilization. He explains that Shaw died in the crash, and the original inhabitants were wiped out by a deadly pathogen. Daniels and the surviving crew attempt to contact the Covenant for rescue, but David harbors dark secrets. He eradicated the engineers using their own technology. He also used Shaw as an experiment to create the original xenomorph. As her crew is massacred, Daniels, Walter, and another survivor battle David and escape to a Covenant shuttle. A xenomorph attempts to board, but is killed by Daniels. Safe aboard the Covenant, the survivors believe they are out of danger. Unfortunately, one survivor is infected. A newly hatched xenomorph emerges and attacks several crew members before Daniels is able to expel it from the ship. The remaining survivors wish to enter hypersleep. However, Walter is revealed to be David in disguise. He had impersonated his synthetic duplicate. Carrying xenomorph embryos, he plans to infect the human passengers destined for Origay 6 and trigger a xenomorph outbreak. Concept art for a planned Alien 5 was leaked during production. Director Neil Blomkamp had envisioned a direct follow-up to Aliens, featuring Ripley and Hicks. Fans were thrilled, and even Weaver expressed a desire to return and conclude her character's story. Unfortunately, the project was never realized. Scott asserted that a script treatment existed and he intended to produce it, but Fox opted to develop prequels instead. This angered fans, who responded to Alien Covenant with indifference. In fact, the film had a marketing campaign comparable to Prometheus, but it underperformed at the box office. It grossed $259 million against a production budget of $150 million. Critics were also unimpressed, and it was widely considered a disappointment. In an interview, Scott expressed regret for making the film and yielding to the demands of studio executives and fans. Despite this, he hoped to finish the new trilogy with a project titled Alien: Awakening. This film would have bridged the gap to the original Alien. However, Fox, fearing another unsuccessful release, canceled all future plans. Alien Covenant could have ended the franchise. However, the Xenomorph saga continued, even after Disney's 2019 acquisition of Fox. A television series and a new film were greenlit. Alien Romulus, directed by Uruguayan Fede Alvarez, is set between the original Alien and Aliens. Ridley Scott is producing both projects, but the studio maintains final approval. From its inception, the Alien franchise has been marked by intense conflict. On screen, humans battled monstrous creatures and powerful corporations. Behind the scenes, creative teams clashed with 20th Century Fox. Yet, amidst this chaos, a groundbreaking, disturbing, and uniquely influential story emerged. What is the next chapter in the Xenomorph saga? What new ships and planets will we discover? Will Ripley return? What other confrontations lie ahead? These questions are both compelling and intriguing. Deadpool is unlike any other superhero, but his journey to the big screen was anything but easy. In fact, this might be one of the most challenging movies we've covered.